In this video, I'm going to talk about SDK location. For you to deploy your project to Android device, you have to build your project for Android device. To do that, you need to go to build settings and then make sure your build settings platform is set as Android. Okay? And you basically build it. Okay? So click build. But to do this, one thing you have to make sure, a lot of times people uh, forget to install SDK. Okay? So to check whether you have the right SDK, you need to go to preferences, okay, and go look for external tools. And down here, there's Android, SDK, and JDK. So you have to have this SDK setting. You have to have some sort of SDK location set for this area right over here. If you don't see this, you have to install SDK, Android SDK. Okay. So if you don't see anything here, one thing you can do, you can go to download. Okay. Then you need to like basically download Android Studio and install it. Okay. And after you install that, okay, I actually install Android Studio. Okay, you simply run Android Studio. Then what you will see is you will see configuration for Android Studio. Okay. So once you open it, you will be able to see this configure. Okay, so I'm going to click configure, and you will see this submenu. I'll choose SDK Manager. So basically, whenever you install Android Studio, it automatically builds your SDK, well, like Android SDK. So basically, if you look at Android SDK here, okay, here Android SDK location. So you will see where you have your Android SDK is. So I'll simply copy this and go back to my preferences, external tools, and paste it here. Okay. And otherwise, you can if you let so that's kind of like easiest way to do. And then another thing sometimes you have okay here API level and Android Studio Android version. Yeah. So sometimes when you deploy your project to Android device, you have to make sure you have right level or current level of Android OS. Okay, so basically, right now API 27 is the highest API Android API, but I don't have that Android API. So whenever I try to deploy my project to Android device, I might get that message your API or Android SDK platform isn't the uh, highest or the most current. Then you can simply come back here and click and apply or OK. Then it will update your APIs, Android SDK APIs. And that's pretty much for it for this video. So in this video I just talked about SDK location. That's one of the most common problem that people have. So if you go to Unity preferences or external tools, if you don't anything here if you don't see anything here, that means you cannot build anything for Android device. So you have to install Android Studio and get the right Android SDK location from the configure Android Studio configure and copy that, paste it here. Then you won't have that issue anymore. All right, that's pretty much it for this video.